From A Game of Thrones to A Dance with Dragons, the principal players in the precipitous political landscape of Westeros altered drastically. Where before, men like Eddard Stark, Tywin Lannister, and Robb Stark jostled for authority, justice, and power, they have been thoroughly replaced by the likes of Stannis Baratheon, Roose Bolton, and Jon Snow. Yet, even as we wait with dwindling hopes for the winds of winter and even a dream of spring, it is not to the new figures, but the old ones that we may look to find answers as to why the conclusion to A Song of Ice and Fire must be a happy one. Hello everyone, and welcome back to Exploring Fiction. Eddard Stark, Tywin Lannister, and Robb Stark are all great men. Yes, they may have stood on different sides of the moral spectrum, but by definition, they were all great. One was the pinnacle of honor and sacrifice. One was a ruthless patriarch intent on greatness. One was an ambitious boy turned king almost overnight. Yet all three suffered anticlimactic and even insulting ends. There is nothing wrong with such writing, and it is even compelling and subversive all at once. However, humans are programmed to seek stories with satisfying conclusions, and the conclusions to the lives of the three men mentioned were anything but. And so, while Eddard, Tywin, and Robb are all gone, we can yet look to their living kin who remain protagonists of the story, and hope they find the missing redemption. If not, A Song of Ice and Fire as a whole risks becoming a demoralizing and unappealing tale, which would be a tragedy for all. So, how exactly do the three great Westerosi lords relate to A Dream of Spring? And why must the final novel have a happy ending? Let's explore. Both respected and reviled for his precious honor, Lord Eddard Stark is one of the first men to suffer as a result of the death of King Robert Baratheon. He takes command in King's Landing only long enough to declare the Mountain an enemy of the crown, and then relinquishes his power once again, following his sense of duty and tradition. Having discovered the secret of Cersei's children, Eddard knows Stannis Baratheon to be the true heir to Robert's throne, and he even has a chance to take matters into his own hands when Renly Baratheon presents him with a plan to take Joffrey and his siblings into custody. But Lord Eddard cannot in good conscience allow himself to exercise the authority that lies before him. Instead, he assumes that his enemies will operate with the same good faith as he, and he confesses to Cersei all that he knows. And in this action makes one of two fatal mistakes. Cersei does not share his sentiment for right and wrong, and with the aid of Littlefinger, who Eddard trusted, hence his second fatal mistake, subdues any chance the Hand of the King has at seeing the political landscape set right. Lord Eddard Stark, former war hero, Warden of the North, and Hand of the King, is executed for treason on the steps of the Great Sept of Baelor, his headless corpse a display for all the common folk to behold. For all his moral practices, he receives only the kiss of cold steel upon his neck, and a good man meets a humiliating and unfulfilling end. Standing opposed to the Warden of the North in both temperament and ambition is Lord Tywin Lannister. Having grown up the son of a timid lord, Tywin can by no means be considered a good man. He is, however, a great man. Evil and ruthless, maybe, but great nonetheless. After witnessing where meekness leads in the struggle for authority in the Seven Kingdoms, Tywin grows to become the exact opposite of his father. He dedicates his life to building and maintaining a Lannister empire, even if he must tear down parts of his own family in the process. And while he is alive, it works. Lord Tywin finds himself as hand for multiple kings, and is often considered among his peers as one of the most prominent individuals in all of Westeros. True, he harbors hatred and resentment for his dwarf son Tyrion, and is secretly a hypocrite when it comes to his judgment of the imp's depraved tendencies. But to the rest of the world, Tywin is a man of cold ambition. He raised the Lannister family to the pinnacle of the Western hierarchy, and even to the summit of the political scene of the Seven Kingdoms themselves. But his reward? A shameful death. Of course, his treatment of Tyrion warrants the resulting acts of revenge, but the manner of Tywin's death would be almost depressing if not for the catharsis of it all. A man who brought his family's house out of shame and apathy, and into the forefront of Westerosi life. A man who dedicated his entire existence to building the empire of the Golden Lion. A man who exuded confidence and authority wherever he went, even when he was in the company of kings. Perished on the chamber pot, taking a crossbow bolt to the bowels. The only shred of comfort that may be had is that unlike Eddard, Tywin's death is at least no public spectacle, but still, for those who see the result, especially those aligned with Tywin, the sight is not only painful, but gut-wrenching. The one man who'd seemed all his life invulnerable was killed in the most vulnerable state possible. Robb Stark ascends higher than either man mentioned previous, claiming a kingship, but his fall is just as colossal. After the capture of his father in King's Landing, Robb calls the Northern Banners and marches for war. And though Eddard eventually perishes, Robb's cause grows into something greater. No longer does he fight merely for family justice, but for the freedom of his home kingdom. He is crowned king in the north, but not before he promises his hand in marriage to a daughter of Lord Walder Frey in order to move his army south. The legend of the young wolf only grows with each passing day and each ensuing battle, as Robb seems nigh unstoppable in the art of war. From the Whispering Wood to his crusade through the Westerlands, he piles victory upon victory. Robb Stark is a legendary king in the making. However, his past commitment rears its head from the depths of his subconscious to haunt him in a crucial hour. For after suffering a significant wound in the west, Robb takes to bed in enemy lands, and is lauded over by Jane Westerling. The two eventually sleep together and marry, for equal parts love and honor. But Robb has broken his oath. And what is a king if his words mean nothing? By pledging himself to Jane Westerling, Robb has shredded the good faith held between him and the Freys, and in his bitter state, Lord Walder orchestrates the Red Wedding with the cooperation of Tywin Lannister and Roose Bolton. Under the assumption he is protected by guest right, Robb enters the halls of the twins with his guard down, prepared to apologize and enjoy the celebration of his uncle's marriage. Instead, the Freys slaughter the young wolf's men, but they save the worst display for Robb himself. After he is peppered with crossbow bolts and stabbed between the ribs by a former ally, Robb has passed on. His corpse, however, has not. The Freys behead their former king, as well as his direwolf Grey Wind, and place the wolf's head atop Robb's body and parade it around in a great show of mockery. And so, the young wolf perishes as the victim of a foul plot and the butt of a cruel joke. In his short time as king, Robb earned the loyalty and dedication of his men, save the Freys, of course, and proved himself as one of the most capable wartime leaders in the history of Westeros. He even proved a thorn in the side of Tywin Lannister, a man most others in the Seven Kingdoms would bow to with little thought. However, Robb's ascension was too swift, too noble, too perfect to last in such a world. He was not just killed, but mutilated and desecrated for his lone blunder. And while of course atonement should be demanded for the mistake made by Robb Stark, the lengths to which his former allies went to enact their revenge overshadows all the young wolf accomplished in his swift reign. All three aforementioned men meet their demise relatively early within the timeline of the story detailed in A Song of Ice and Fire. Yet, I believe their respective stories hold great sway over the conclusion of the saga, and loom like an ominous and cautionary cloud over their kin and creator. Eddard, Tywin, and Robb are all examples of George R.R. Martin's beliefs about the world. They are ideas manifest that glory, chivalry, and ruthlessness often yield not reward, like the fairy tales say, but bitter ends. Good men are not uplifted, but manipulated and taken advantage of until they are cast aside. Proud men are not admired and feared all at once, but felled by those who they wronged to reach the pinnacle of their success. Young men with romantic illusions do not survive to see their love blossom, but are instead betrayed for the mistake of an inexperienced heart. Such lessons and examples can be invaluable, and certainly cement the stances of George R.R. Martin. In order to survive and thrive in reality, one must cast aside any illusions and see the world for how it really is. But still, A Song of Ice and Fire is a story, and humans are innately drawn toward satisfying conclusions. Not all endings have to be or are happy, as countless stories across time reflect, but A Song of Ice and Fire is a true labor of the soul. The most appealing characters face the most harrowing challenges, and many fail to make it out alive. So, for those fan favorites that remain, it will be relieving, and maybe even essential, to see them finally achieve victory at the conclusion of A Dream of Spring. Of course, not all characters need to live happily ever after, but it would be most satisfying seeing Arya, Sansa, Bran, Tyrion, and Jon reach peace and prosperity. If these characters have a happy ending, then the trials of Eddard, Tywin, Robb, and all the others who fell in the conflicts plaguing Westeros will all seem worth the cost. If not, though, then these character deaths will only be more painful and much less fulfilling. So, while Houses Stark and Lannister have lost many of their most prominent figures to gruesome and cruel ends, the conclusion of A Dream of Spring has a chance to set everything right. Though the pending and finishing installments of A Song of Ice and Fire seem no nearer now than a decade ago, speculation and analysis over the series are alive as ever. Three men around which the earlier entries focused heavily, Eddard Stark, Tywin Lannister, and Robb Stark, met cruel and unusual ends that seemingly mocked their traits and subverted the usual tropes. Such practices were effective, propelling A Song of Ice and Fire to famous and infamous heights. But humans are still drawn to satisfying conclusions. And so, while A Dream of Spring is still merely a word on the wind, I believe the lives and deaths of the three men listed previous will hold much impact over the future works. If the conclusion of the narrative is happy, and the audience is content, the brutal deaths of these titanic figures will sit better, for it was all worth it. If not, then A Song of Ice and Fire could be remembered as merely a story in which the great and mighty earn only humiliation as the reward for their deeds. So, that's all for this video. Leave a comment with your thoughts, I'd love to hear them. Leave a like if you enjoyed, and subscribe if you're new here, I'd love to have you. Visit my website russelawellsauthor.com for exclusive reviews, fiction, and more, and sign up for my mailing list for free exclusive content. The links for both are in the description below. And, like always, I will see you next time.